Was it worth it? Cam Newton puts Tom Brady's legacy on trial. A former Panthers quarterback just asked one of the most uncomfortable questions in modern sports, and he asked it about one of the greatest players who's ever lived. It's not about stats, it's not about championships, it's about what got left behind to win them. Cam Newton wants to know if Tom Brady's marriage was the price of his greatness and whether that price was worth paying. Stick around because by the end of this, you might find yourself asking the same question about a lot more than just quarterbacks. Let's set the scene because the timeline here matters more than people realize. Back in early 2022, Tom Brady stood in front of cameras and said something that, at the time, sounded like a man who had finally found peace. He talked about his wife deserving what she needed from him as a husband. He talked about his kids deserving what they needed from him as a dad. It was the kind of statement that made you think this was it. 22 seasons, 7 rings, and now, finally, home. And for a moment, it looked like his marriage agreed. Gisele Bündchen posted her support publicly, calling it quite a ride. Genuine, warm, the kind of reaction you'd expect from someone who'd waited a long time to hear those words. Then, a little over a month later, Brady reversed course. He announced he was coming back for a 23rd season. And that's where this story stops being about football and starts being about something a lot more human. According to a source who spoke with people at the time, going back to Tampa after that retirement put a real strain on the personal side of Brady's life. The same report described Bundchen as frustrated, worn down by a career that always seemed to come first, even after she'd spent years supporting it. That's an important detail because it reframes the entire situation. This wasn't a sudden blow up. It was, by these accounts, exhaustion built up over years, finally reaching its breaking point the moment Brady chose football one more time. We'll come back to that idea of accumulated strain in a moment, because it's central to what Cam Newton is really asking. Later in 2022, reports emerged that Brady had stepped away from Buccaneers practice for personal reasons. Around that same stretch, he and Bundchen were seen separately with their children, which, fairly or not, told its own story to anyone paying attention. Then in September of that year, Bundchen spoke publicly about her own perspective, and it's worth sitting with what she actually said rather than just summarizing it. She talked about needing to think carefully about the moments shaping her children as people. She said she felt fulfilled as a mother and as a wife, that she'd done her part, that she'd moved to Boston and built what she called a cocoon, a loving environment for her kids, all while supporting Brady's dreams. That's not a woman describing regret about her marriage. That's a woman describing the limits of what she was willing to keep giving. By October 4th of that year, she'd hired a divorce lawyer. Within weeks, the divorce was finalized. Brady played out the rest of that season with Tampa Bay, finished 8 and 9, and then walked away from football for the second and this time, final time. Now, here's why all of that context matters before we even get to what Cam Newton said. Because his comments only land if you understand the full weight of that timeline. On his podcast, Fourth and One, Newton brought up Brady specifically while talking about a much bigger pattern in professional sports. He pointed to what he called Brady's public relationship unraveling, and then he widened the lens, bringing up names like Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, and Shaquille O'Neal. His question was simple, direct, and honestly, one that doesn't get asked enough in sports media. Was it worth it? The marriage failed, the career propelled. Was it worth it? That's not a shot at Brady. If you listen to how Newton framed it, this isn't him trying to drag a legend through the mud. He's using Brady's situation, along with Jordan, Kobe, and Shaq, as data points in a much larger conversation about what elite achievement actually costs the people who chase it. And that's important because another team, another sport, another industry entirely could be facing a very similar situation right now. This isn't really a football story at its core. It's a story about sacrifice, and football just happens to be the stage. Think about what Newton is really getting at here. Michael Jordan's competitive obsession is legendary, and so are the strains it put on his personal life over the years. Kobe Bryant's relentless work ethic became almost mythical, the 4 a.m. workouts, the refusal to ever be outworked, and that came with real costs to his family life at various points too. Shaquille O'Neal has been candid in interviews about regrets connected to his marriage and the demands of a career that never let up. Brady fits right into that lineage. Before she married him, Bundchen was one of the most successful models in the world, The face of Chanel, Versace, Dolce& and Gabbana, Louis Vuitton, Valentino. She had built something enormous on her own. When she stepped back from that to help raise their children, it wasn't a small sacrifice. It was a career altering decision, made so Brady could keep chasing rings well into his 40s. So when Newton asks if it was worth it, he's not just asking about Brady's happiness. He's asking whether the entire trade, her career for his, her time for his time, her presence for his presence, actually balances out once the trophies are sitting on the shelf. There's another angle worth considering here too. Brady didn't just choose football once, he chose it, stepped away, and then chose it again, even after saying publicly that his family deserved more of him. That reversal is really the heart of why this story resonates the way it does. It's one thing to sacrifice family for a career you're still building. It's another to walk it back after telling everyone, including your own wife, that you were done. That's what makes Newton's question so pointed. He's not asking whether ambition is bad. He's asking whether there's a point where continuing to chase greatness stops being admirable and starts being something else entirely. And that question doesn't stay contained to Brady or to Jordan, Kobe, and Shaq. It applies to anyone in any high pressure career who's ever had to choose again and again between the job and the people waiting at home. Brady walked away from football for good after that 2022 season, finishing his career with 7 Super Bowl titles and a resume that will likely never be matched. But according to these reports, he also walked away from his marriage in the process, and that's a piece of his legacy that doesn't show up in any box score. So here's the discussion worth having, and it's the same one Cam Newton put out there. When you look at Brady's full career, the championships alongside the personal cost, where do you land? Was the pursuit of that seventh ring, the return to Tampa after already saying goodbye, worth what it reportedly cost him at home? Or does a legacy like that always come with a price nobody talks about until it's already been paid? That's the conversation Newton started, and it's one worth having honestly, without picking a villain, because there probably isn't one here. Just a career that never stopped, and a family that eventually did.